Hi everyone, I'm Joy Rosa with Earthworks Acupuncture, and we're here with my special guest today, Ricky Bratz of Cazimi Healing. Ricky's been a community organizer, farmer, and food and health justice educator in North Carolina since 2003. Throughout the Triad and Triangle, she's initiated and been involved in projects such as healing justice, community gardening, Cakalak Thunder, food access justice, labor organizing, houselessness, community centers, collective living, racial equity, consensus and decision making, and queer liberation. Welcome, Ricky.
Thank you so much, Joy, for having me.
Yeah.
And hello to everybody.
Yeah, please introduce yourself a little further and talk about your ancestry, lineage, globally, regionally, just where you're from.
Yes, so my name is Ricky. I use she, her pronouns. And my people are of Sicilian, Swana, which is Southwest Asian and North African descent and Eastern European descent. And I am currently located in the occupied lands of the Occaneechi Band of the Sakonee Nation, currently known as Chapel Hill in North Carolina.
So can you tell us a little bit about your journey into health and herbalism?
Yeah, definitely. Basically, well, a big part of what I do is working with plant medicine, just nature in general. And I have been farming since I was 17. I started working on farms when I was in high school, mostly like small scale organic farms. And I just really, didn't really know a lot about our entire agricultural system at that point. But yeah, I really enjoyed the physical labor and being outside all the time. And that's actually how I started developing a relationship with plants. And so it was kind of because of my love of farming and love of nature and plants that I got more interested in herbal medicine. One of the farms that I was actually an apprentice on, one of the farmers was an herbalist. And so I apprenticed with her for a season. And that really helped me kind of catalyze my interest in wanting more formal training. And then kind of concurrently, I had some personal experiences with natural medicines during some challenging times in my early 20s. And I remember going to see, I think it was a naturopath. I didn't even know what that was at the time. Someone recommended this person to me. And I was like, I'll try something different, because I had gone actually to the doctor like 3 different times. And they gave me like some nasal spray. I don't even remember what they did, but nothing helped. It turned out what I was dealing with was anxiety, like symptoms of anxiety. But no one recognized that. They were like, here's some nasal spray, or nothing's wrong with you, So yeah, I actually got, I think it was like a nutritional protocol from this person, a flower essence blend. And then I was also seeing our friend at the time, Kamalitha. I was seeing her for massage and Reiki. And it was kind of like all those things combined really helped me.
Mm-hmm.
And I became essentially convinced, right, in the power of this medicine, because it worked for me. And nothing else did. And it seemed like Western medicine really had no idea, like not even how to assess even what was going on for me, let alone providing like solutions.
Yeah.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit more just quickly? So you've been farming since high school. Is this when not everybody knows about mountain gardens, but is this when you were introduced to mountain gardens?
Oh, no, not yet. No, I went to, I lived at Mountain Gardens, which is basically a sanctuary of rare and unusual plants in Western North Carolina, run by a magical mountain man named Joe Hollis.
Yes.
He is an elder who's lived there since the 70s and has really just created this incredible, like living collection of beautiful plants and medicinal plants. He also specializes in Chinese medicinal herbs. But I lived there for 3 months in 2009, and that's when I went to herbal medicine school. That's when I decided to get more formal training after the apprenticeship and kind of informal study that I had been doing on my own. Yeah, so I went to the Chestnut School of Herbal Medicine, based out of Asheville, which is now a completely online program. But at that time, it was it was in person. And then I also studied with Mimi Hernandez of the One World Healing Arts Institute, which no longer is in operation, but she's the current executive director of the American Herbalist Guild. So those were kind of like my two main teachers in the beginning.
American Herbalist Guild, great. Yeah, thanks for talking about mountain gardens. Joe Hollis was my professor of botany at my first acupuncture school. So I got to spend some time with him. And
I remember that now.
Yeah, I was so pleased because I had always wanted to do wolfing at mountain garden, but it was always full and I never had the opportunity. And I thought, oh shoot, like I would just love the opportunity to learn from this mandrake root.
He's like he's a walking encyclopedia, like for sure. He just knows so much about plants. Yeah. It's amazing.
He's excellent. So how did Cazimi Healing begin?
Yeah, good question. So after I graduated from the two schools that I mentioned, I moved back to Greensboro from Asheville, and I started to see clients just on the side of whatever job I had at that time. And I was actually operating under the name Vital Bloom Botanicals. I don't know if you remember that. Yeah. But yeah, so like, it was basically like, I just used herbs and energy healing in my personal life and for friends and family, like informally seeing clients in that way. And then in 2017, I relaunched my business under the name Cazimi Healing. And I expanded services beyond herbal medicine to include energy medicine and coaching, which I had been doing some training in. And now, I mean, all along, I feel like my work has existed to support like my community, which tends to be like social justice oriented, community organizing type people. So I feel like my work is definitely oriented to supporting people who work to create social change, supporting frontline communities, most directly impacted communities. So I offer a sliding scale that feels really important to me. And I do an annual fundraiser to cover a scholarship that provides no cost care to people who can't access financially like my regular rates for my sliding scale. My sliding scale starts at $45 for a consultation. And then, I feel like the other important piece about Cazimi Healing is that the work is informed by a trauma lens. That, I see the systems that we all live under as a source of trauma for everyone. Obviously, some people are impacted more directly, but for this reason, I see healing work as a form of justice work. And that we're providing care for healing, like the spiritual, emotional, mental, and physical health issues that the systems that we live under, like, cause all of us.
Oh my God, I think that's so important. See, this is why I just really admire your work, and definitely I admire your mission statement. It's really powerful and it resonates with me. I just wanted to read it. I support the health and healing of people working for social change, especially LGBTQ plus folks and people of color through earth-based medicines, energy healing, and coaching. I utilize a healing justice, trauma-informed, spirit-centered approach to healing. I just really admire when I have met other providers who definitely understand exactly like the scope that we are all kind of working under. I mean, trauma-informed care, I think, is absolutely necessary. Just like you said, healing work and healing is in tandem with social justice work. You can't give to community from an empty cup, and I think that that's something to be noted. So can you actually tell us a little more about your own practices of self-care or healing arts, and like what has sustained you as an organizer and an energy healer, body worker?
Yeah, I think this is such a huge question, like huge, like big, like it's a big question. It's an important question.
Big Q.
Thank you for asking it. Yeah. I really think that it's an ongoing practice. And I think that it's changed a lot for me as I have just grown and shifted my relationship with myself. But yeah, I think initially, like, I saw learning about herbal medicine as a skill to be used for self-sufficiency, like so as not to depend on the capitalist extractive system that we live under, and also preparing for like the zombie apocalypse. So,
The
you know,
revolution.
that,
You mean the revolution? I'm sorry.
and yeah, and that for sure. Coded zombie apocalypse. But yeah, I think that, you know, obviously that is still really important and useful, but I also feel like learning about plant medicine has become my journey in learning about myself, right? Like that sounds really cheesy or like cliche or something. It's like, but it's really true. And that it, like, I've learned so much about, right? Because if everything is alive and everything has energy, working with plants, each plant has its own energy and each plant has its own essence and spirit, and that we can communicate with those things, and actually those things help us reflect back ourselves. And I think that it's also helped me get deeper into ancestral healing practices, really understanding, because you right, it's like bioregional herbalism is like, I think that when we learn about the plants that are around us in our immediate environment, which is bioregional herbalism, it's like what's available to us, and that's really important because of just having a connection to the land, whether that land is land that our ancestors have been on for generations, or whether it's land that was stolen from indigenous people. It's still important to cultivate that relationship to place and where you are. And it's also important to recognize like where your people are from and maybe what plants are, you know, part of your lineage. And so, yeah, I think that that has really helped me. Just learning about plants in general has helped me connect to my personal lineage and ancestry, and that has helped me connect more deeply with myself and what my self-care practices are, just also by looking at like what are some folk care or folk remedies, or like, you know, like I've done interviews with my family about like what are some plants that we have used, so like specifically around plants, that has been really amazing for me. But yeah, I think that overall with self-care, like there are so many different practices and so many different ways to take care of oneself that I've experimented with a lot of different things, I guess, over the years. And the things that resonate the most for me tend to be the things that I'm now offering to support my clients. So like coaching is about asking a lot of questions and being very like curious and inquisitive, and, you know, not having answers per se, but it's just like this exploration. So like trying to hold that approach and mentality to just life in general, because I tend to have black and white thinking, and so like that approach helps me just keep things more open. And energy medicine has been a huge influence on me too. Like I was trained in Reiki in the same year that I went to herbal medicine school in 2009, because it also helped me during that time that I was dealing with stuff personally. So I offer that now to clients, as well as flower essences. And flower essences, right? It's a form of plant medicine, but it really works on the emotional body, and it really is helping people connect with the essence of the plants in a different way. And so, yeah, those tend to be the things that I use, but I also have learned that if I don't move my body, like physical exercise wise, that I tend toward anxiety. That's like where I go when I get out of balance. And then meditation, like the stillness piece and actually having quiet and pause is also vital, because I'm a trauma survivor. And so like anyone who's experienced intense trauma, like our nervous systems are very out of whack. And so we're living in the sympathetic, like overactive fight or flight mode all the time. And so practices of stillness are actually, it's not just about like, I'm taking a break or I'm being quiet. You're actually recalibrating your nervous system and healing your nervous system to bring it back into the parasympathetic state, so that your body can have better physical functions, because when you're in fight or flight all the time, your body can't do the normal functions. It's focused on getting you out of whatever the perceived danger is. And when it's in the rest and digest or parasympathetic mode, your body can do things like process nutrients and help you digest your food properly so you don't get bloated and feel icky. It just helps us take a breath.
Highlight like um, herbal medicine as self-sufficiency. I just really think that we're in a time right now, and when this gets posted, I think there's already murmurs within the past 2 weeks, like about homesteading, farming, urban farming, seed saving, things like that. And that's kind of what I've been trying to talk to my community about as well. Like, start doing this stuff now if you haven't already, immediately, because just be mindful of heirloom versus GMO. That's what I'll say.
Right.
And also just right, energy of the plants and spirits are kept as a reflection of your own personal practices of self-care and healing and mindfulness. I think that that's really beautiful, and that's something. But both of these in tandem are what I learned coming into the eastern door. You went west, I went east, and here we're meeting again, because that's exactly how I also came back into touch with my own ancestry and lineage as well, through Eastern herbalism. And I thought that was right, like really important, just to talk about like the biodiversity of herbalism, and how that is such a reflection on the biodiversity of not only individuals but also collectives of humans across the world. Like what are the plant species that are around you that are medicinal for you. And Chinese medical lens talks about the taste, flavor, nature, and temperature of herbs and spices and foods, even, from tofu to chicken. There are different properties. So I think that that's also something to be harkened back to ancestrally. I made a video on Instagram a little while ago, right? Like, this was right before the coronavirus pandemic made news here in the United States. And I was talking about the spleen in the stomach, and coughs and phlegm and concerns around respiratory issues. And I was comparatively talking about Dr. Sebi's principles, who's an Afro-Honduran, who's from the same region as my birth father. And that really, coming in through Chinese medicine brought me back to my ancestral Honduran and Northeast and West African lineages, because I was like, oh, this just makes total sense. So I love that. And I love that you just mentioned like cultivating the place that you're in, like that's so important, not just cultivating or like building your home in terms of like a 3D home, but really getting to know yourself through the land is so important. And I think that people right now, like right when we're talking about indigenous reparations and restitutions, right? Like even like that might be new for some people to be hearing. Also in healing, I love that you're bringing this up, that we need to start recognizing the lands that we are all on currently. And we're seeing like a larger environmental effect and impact from this virus in actually positive ways, like oceans are kind of clearing up, and the ozone layer is in repair, and just to really take this pause to also kind of see some light in the dark, so to speak. But yeah, thanks for touching on those things. My next question for you would be, right, in response to this pandemic, we've seen North Carolina seems a little less impacted than what we have been on the Northwest. I know the Northeast is getting, a pretty turbulent time up there too. But medicines are flying off the shelves, you know, like there's barely any restock. I can't even find elderberries out here. You know, no one's really restocking, and foods are seeming really scarce. So as an urban herbalist, what are some of the best references or tools or maybe groups that folks could form or read about? Just any information on DIY, do it yourself. Like, I think people are really wanting to know what they can start to do at home now.
Right. Yeah, yeah. I think I've been hearing and seeing that too. I think that North Carolina, among other places in the US right now, are maybe a few weeks behind places like the West Coast and New York and New England, where things are really like people are in it right now. But I think as cases continue, testing continues and cases multiply because of the testing. I mean, people have it already, I'm sure, but we're just like, it's actually being documented. Yeah, I think we'll see the same things. I mean, in many of our grocery stores right now, folks are being limited as far as like quantities of things that they can purchase. And, you know, my partner and I went to the grocery store 3 times, like within the last like week and a half, and couldn't find toilet paper anywhere. Right. So it's happening. And yeah, I saw, at least in Whole Foods, they were limiting the amount of zinc and elderberry and other supplements that people could buy, because people are just, yeah, and everywhere is sold out online of elderberries, which happens every year, but it usually happens around like September, October, right? Because people are getting ready, maybe not even that early, when everybody's trying to make elderberry syrup, but it's not happening at this time of their year usually at all. But I've seen some of the major herb companies like Mountain Rose Herbs, and our local company in North Carolina, Red Moon Herbs. I've seen it with Avena Botanicals up in Maine. I've seen it with Herbalist and Alchemist on the West Coast. Like a lot of the mid to larger size herb companies are actually pausing online orders right now because they cannot keep up with the volume of orders that are coming in, and they're running out of stock. They're running out of just dry herbs, and they're running out of like formulas that people are ordering online. So yeah, I definitely think that thinking about sourcing and like where are things coming from is a really important question. And even for me, like I can't grow enough elderberries or harvest enough. I wouldn't want to harvest the wild elderberries that are around here in order to like make enough elderberry syrup for what I sell to people or what I make for clients. And you know, that's a whole other question about like, well, should people be making it in that large of quantities, right? If it's not sustainable, or if you're having to source from elsewhere. But I order my elderberries from Mountain Rose Herbs, right? So, or other like Star West Botanicals or something. So I can't get elderberries right now. So I have like one more batch of syrup that I have supplies for. And then after that, I'm going to be cleaned out because I can't get more. So, you know, this is like some real stuff. So I would say like make your own elderberry syrup, but you know, it's hard to get the supplies right now, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I think this is really where like growing your own plant medicine comes in handy. Yes. Because if you're growing enough just like for you and your family or your like internal community, or if there's a community garden somewhere or like a shared kind of like food park, like local food park or something where, you know, medicinal plants and edible plants and fruits are grown, like those become really important resources for sure. And I really think it's like, you know, there are just things all the time that are important or handy to have around. I usually advise people, I do like a growing a medicinal plant garden workshop at our local botanical garden. And, you know, I ask people to consider when we get to the design phase of like, what are the health issues in your family? And then maybe designing a garden around that so that
That's
you have,
a beautiful idea.
know, like,
can you say that one more time? That's an amazing idea. I love that.
Yeah, because people are always like, I don't know what I should plant. I don't know what I should grow. And it's like, well, think about like, what are the health issues in your family? Maybe there's high blood pressure. Like I have anxiety. So like everything I do is related to like stress relief and anxiety and, you know, digestive issues. So it's like, what are the things you can grow
Yeah.
that would support, yeah, you've got your little mountain medicine chest that you're growing outside.
That is probably the best piece of advice I've heard in quite a while, actually, because
Oh,
it's serious, because it's as enlightening to me as when Michelle Salinas, RIP, she told me, eat with the seasons. And I went, huh? What you mean eat with the
totally. Right.
seasons? Eat with the seasons. And I just started learning all about, like eating seasonally, which is like,
Mhm.
at this point, we've learned so much about decolonizing our health and our wellness, but also our food and nutrition. And
That's right.
when, another woman of color was telling me, eat with the seasons, I went,
That's right.
yeah, I want to do that.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what you're saying. That's as enlightening as garden for your health
Mm-hmm.
concerns. That's amazing. Thanks for sharing that piece. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
You're welcome.
So tell us a little bit, how has COVID-19 impacted your business?
Yeah, how has it impacted my business? Well, honestly, it's actually increased business because I think, as we were just talking about, people are worried about, I don't know if it's so much about supplies. I think people are worried about their own health and well-being, and people are stressed out. I think that, I haven't worked with anyone who has actually tested positive for the virus at this point, and I'm not doing like in-person consultations right now. I'm just doing, Zoom and phone. Um, but yeah, people are mostly interested in prevention, I think, because everyone doesn't want to get sick.
Right.
So things like building immunity, sleep, stress, and anxiety are the biggest things that I've seen. And then also specifically like elderberry syrup.
Right.
Everybody wants elderberry syrup right now. So I've had a really big increase in orders in the online store as well as consultations.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I would say that like I have also shifted my self-care practices just because I think like I'm working from home right now. I have another job right now as well as Cazimi Healing, and I'm really grateful to have it because I don't have to worry as much about income flow. However, that means I'm really busy because I have a lot going on with Cazimi Healing and I have this other job that I'm doing.
Mhm.
Um, but I do feel like working from home all the time has afforded me the opportunity to tune into my personal needs and take care of myself more. And again, like as I mentioned, being a trauma survivor, I learned many years ago like why that's important, because I know I get out of balance easily. So I think that I am not speaking for myself when I'm saying like because of this is a period of uncertainty, right? Um, and I think that everybody has different trauma responses, but I think one could argue that the situation we're in right now is a potential trigger for people
Oh
who
yeah.
have experienced
Right.
trauma and could become a traumatic experience for others.
Say it
Um,
again. Yes.
so, so I think that, people have different responses to uncertainty, and it's hard to orient and kind of just like latch on to and then figure out where things are. Like things don't feel solid, right? Um, and so like for me, when I feel uncertain, I tend to want to like retreat and isolate, which is kind of ironic given that that's what we're being told to do right now.
You're
So
doing
in
the
some
Lord's
ways,
work.
I'm actually doing okay right now. Um, but I think on the flip side of that, what I have to do is I have to really push myself to stay connected. And I think that's what we're seeing with people reaching out for support from healers, right? Is it's like it's a way to stay connected and it's a way to just get support, right? Um,
Yeah.
that's important. And like I'm happy to be here supporting people very much, but I also wish people weren't having such a hard time. It's really clear that that's happening right now.
Yeah, definitely. I appreciate that also are trauma informed even throughout this conversation too, because that is something that has not been, well, it's been speckled throughout some other interviews, but really driving that home, like, this is a time where, right, some of us in a trauma response might feel the need to slow down or be more productive, so there's kind of
Right.
like, right, like, and that's sort of what uh, survivor mind might have, right? Like I'm also a
Yeah.
survivor. And so
Hmm.
um, to me, this Zoom stuff wasn't really out of like productivity trauma response, but it was actually in healing for me. I'm connecting with other like-minded social justice, trauma-informed wellness practitioners that I know, love, and trust personally. And,
Right.
you know, the being in isolation at this time, right? Like I am a person who enjoys my solitude. I will say that. Um, but I do have. I mean, I'm a human. You know, like it's in my innate nature to be
Hmm.
creative and be in a collective of sorts. So
Hmm.
this has also been just a healing channel for me personally. You know, to like channel
Yeah.
other healing also into people's living rooms. So, so
Yeah. I love that. I
yeah,
love that.
one
And I
in
love that you're doing this.
thank you. I love that you're doing it with me. We're co-creating. So, what ways are you providing care for yourself? And
Mm.
you kind of touched on this, but is it very different from what you're providing for your patients? And I know that things have probably shifted with like telemedicine now too. So maybe.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so I guess it's like specifically the things that I do to take care of myself. I guess I mentioned a little bit about like exercise and um but yeah, so like physically moving my body. I work out at home. Like I'm a real big encourager of like moving your body in whatever way that feels good, where, what's actually enjoyable to you.
Right.
Um I do like exercise, so I'm cool with that. Um so I do that multiple times a week, and I do it from my house because that's just easier for me. So once again, like I didn't really need to like worry about, oh, my gym membership, or like I just people are gonna be like, does Ricky ever leave her house? Like, yeah, I work out at my house, and now that it's warmer here in North Carolina, like it's been in like the 60s, 70s. It was even like in the 80s last week. So I've been outside tending. I know. So I've been outside tending the garden and like with the plants, walking around in the land. And then I actually just went through a Reiki or not like a recertification. It was like a refresh with my
Hmm.
teacher, mentor, and friend, Juanita Martin, who's out of New Jersey. But she was here doing a training, and I got to go for the weekend. So I kind of got like reinvigorated with self Reiki. So I've been doing that a lot, mostly in the mornings. And then the meditation, again, just like for nervous system regulation and like connecting to myself. Those are the big things that I do. And I feel like my goal with clients is to find mechanisms of self-care that resonate with them. So again, kind of like through coaching and questions, we like set up their goals, kind of take an inventory of like, what is life for you like now? Like, what are the changes that you want to be making? What are your existing habits and lifestyle? And like coming up with a plan that will, it might take some experimenting, but like things that work for them as far as self-care goes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I'm also trained, I guess, in a specific set of skills. And I feel like hopefully that's clear on my like website and what I do. And so I think people are either curious about trying like energy medicine or flower essences or herbs, or they already know they're interested in it. So those end up being kind of some of the main forms of self-care that I'm obviously like supporting people with. So like in-person sessions will usually involve an energy healing Reiki session or like a guided meditation of some kind. Uh, and I can do that over the phone with people too. You
Mm-hmm.
can do Reiki, you can do distance Reiki, and then you can do a guided meditation on the phone or on a Zoom call. So yeah, I mean, it really hasn't changed how I'm supporting people.
Good.
I mail herbs all the time, and I'm going to keep doing it until the post office closes or they tell me I can't do it for some reason.
So what advice would you give your patients or potential patients regarding at-home care for specifically like queer health with Western herbalism during this time of quarantine and mandated stay-at-homes? I think people are really wanting to know like what in the world can I do or take?
Yeah. Well, again, I think that like for queer health specifically, like we know that queer folks are more at risk for other health complications because of things that folks experience, like disproportionately trauma, violence, other HIV, and other immunocompromising conditions. Added stress from marginalization, and we know stress kind of like depresses the immune system and the immune response. Um, so like it probably goes without saying, but I'll just say that like following the CDC recommendations around like washing your hands well and like staying home if you really can do that, wearing a mask and gloves, like I don't think that's overdoing it or overkill. I think that is important. But at home, I think a lot of people, like again, assuming home is a safe place for people and just wanting to acknowledge that like rates of intimate partner violence are higher in queer relationships, that and then again with like overlapping intersecting identities, the rate increases even more based on race and gender. But yeah, like if you're at home and you have that space and it's okay, like people have things usually in their kitchens that can be used as medicine. So onions and garlic, herbs, whether they're fresh or dry, like even like a spice rack, like depending on what you have access to and how much you cook, you might have things like thyme or oregano, rosemary and lavender. And really, like I think something that really helps, you don't have to know each herb, but most plants that are aromatic, meaning that they have like a strong smell to them, right? Like all of those plants smell very strongly, lavender, rosemary, oregano. They all have antimicrobial, antibacterial, antiviral properties just inherently in those plants. That's part of their survival mechanisms. And if you think about humans long, long ago, before we had refrigeration, those herbs were used as a form of food preservation.
Yeah.
Because right, because it's not like, yes, they help with flavoring and they taste really nice, but they also help preserve the food for like a limited time, right? Because of those properties that they have. So yeah, I think that cooking with those plants and spices as much as possible, making soups and broths and teas and steams, like you could just throw a bunch of like rosemary and oregano in a pot on your stove and just boil it and let the steam rise out of the pot into the atmosphere of your house, and like you're breathing in, because those plants that smell that are aromatic, when you like rub the leaves and you can smell the like lavender release its delicious smell, those are volatile oils, and volatile oils are actually carried away by steam. So the steam is helping disperse those antimicrobial, antiviral oils into the atmosphere.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you for
and
going.
you can do that. Like you probably, maybe I know you've heard of steam inhalation, but for people who haven't, you could do the same thing with putting the herbs or the essential oil in a bowl of water, hot water, and then putting a towel over your head and like laying your face over the bowl and inhaling the steam. So that's also really good for keeping like the mucous membranes from becoming really dry, which is something people are concerned about with the COVID-19. It's getting the little volatile oils into your mucous membranes. And it smells really nice and feels really good too.
Yeah, I just posted that actually a little bit about that with essential oils on my Instagram story. But one of the first times I tried that, which is like, here's the warning, right? Like if you're boiling that and then you're going to like put, you know, the towel over your head to do it, be careful of the steam, y'all. It can burn your face. Your skin's
if it's too hot.
Too hot.
And it's also like, you don't want to put too much essential oil, just like literally 2 or 3 drops of the essential oil, because I have made putting too much in, and when you do the inhalation, it actually it feels like it's like singeing your nose hairs because it's so strong.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you don't want to singe your nose hairs, you can also just, you gave me this diffuser like years ago, and I totally still have it and I still use it. But yeah, we've just been keeping rosemary oil on every day in the house in the diffuser, right? And the other thing you can do, which people usually have, like, you know, there's a whole spiel we could talk about Palo Santo and white sage and kind of how they are very like endangered plants, over harvested plants. They're also very culturally specific plants to certain tribes in the Southwest and in South America. But a lot of people tend to have those in their house, and those plants are also antimicrobial, antibacterial, antiviral. So if you actually do the smudging using the smoke for fumigation, for cleansing, right? Because that's what you're doing. And of course, for a lot of the like spiritual practices around those plants, there's also like an energetic cleansing that's happening. But if you're using it just for like cleansing or of like, you know, fumigation, like I said, that smoke has been used across the globe in many, many cultures, varying plants to help kind of clear the air, so to speak. So that's just another easy, accessible thing. And there's lots of different plants that you can use for that: cedar, pine, mugwort, lavender. So there's options.
Our friend
Yeah.
Eliza has been using a lot of pine lately.
Yeah.
To burn.
Yeah.
Also
Pine again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like those are some of the easiest, most accessible things. And then please don't overlook foundational basic stuff like sleep, physical activity, drinking enough water throughout the day. You know, what are the things you're doing to help stress relief? It's like, it's great to like douse yourself with a bunch of supplements, or I don't know what else people are making and doing, but like, those are the pillars of like what help our body function and do the things that it's supposed to do.
So last question, kind of wrapping up. What are
Sure.
a few ready-made herbs or herbal tinctures that you have on hand that people can use for stress or worry or immune support?
Yeah, I guess what we just talked about like can sometimes sound overwhelming to people, even though like there's some simple things you can do. Another simple thing you can do is order something that's already made, right? And actually, this is funny. I have one of my things right here.
I am definitely putting your just contact information in the description. So y'all get your healing. Y'all get your healing tinctures.
So honestly, the reason why I have this little tincture bottle right here is because I normally don't like the attention or spotlight on me, and because Joy is my friend, it's easier for me to forget that I'm being like interviewed. But this is my anxiety support formula, and I have it right here. So like I was getting ready to like, oh my God, I'm gonna need this. But it's actually been okay. But so this is something that I sell in my online store. It's anxiety support. It has skullcap, milky oats, passion flower, chamomile, nettle, and it's preserved with organic grape alcohol. And it fucking works. Like, I'm sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but it really does. Like, it's my favorite formula now for anxiety. I've gotten some really good feedback from people around it and how it supported them. So I also have elderberry syrup for now until I run out, I guess. I also have like a mood support formula because like things are so up and down. I also have a mimosa and rose quartz elixir, which is basically like heart nurturing, heart healing and supporting.
I'm gonna hit you up for that one.
Yeah, that one is one of my favorites. It also tastes good because it is made with local honey.
Yeah.
But the truth is, honestly, like I don't have a ton of stuff in my online store, but the bulk of my medicines that I make cater to trauma and trauma recovery. Because again, that lens that we talked about in the beginning, that I basically like our world is also beautiful. I want to say that too, but our world is also really fucking traumatic on a daily basis for a lot of people. And that is so, so real. And I just like, that's what I'm trying to offer support for people for. So it's like in this time, it's even more heightened. So it just feels like, oh, well, here's the thing that I was already doing that seems to be extremely relevant at this moment. And that's not to say like, oh, like I already knew like what was going on. And it's just like, these are ongoing issues, right? And that it, for me, is like the important focus of the medicines that I make and that I offer, and they just happen to be relevant at this moment, especially. So it's a great time to nourish with plants, and whether you're just hanging out with them outside or you're ingesting them in a bottle. So
Yes, that's beautiful. Um, I'm glad that we kind of stuck on the Western herbal track. I was hoping that we would, because in future videos with Dr. Lee, actually we'll go more into Eastern herbalism. But I think it's really
yeah,
important for people to, again, just like we were saying, harkening back to, you know, what occupied land are you on currently?
right,
What's around you? And
right,
what Western medicinals can we utilize at this time? Because right now it's also
right.
very hard to source just very specific Chinese medical herbs too. And these are like
Hmm.
also high medical grade herbs, that are
Hmm.
life-saving. And so everything is in scarcity right now, but I'm really trying to also
Hmm.
study the course of um, not feeding into fear, being a realist, but also not
Hmm.
feeding into fear, and not acting out of a scarcity mindset anymore,
Right,
because that's an old story.
that's right.
And I'm really excited that you came on here today. I'm so thankful for you, and thanks for taking this time. One last question, kind of ad hoc. Um, can you name like a book or two that you are either reading currently or might recommend?
Oh, okay, good question. Yes. But one of the books I would have been reading was reading, it's called The Disease Delusion. I forget who it's by, but we can link it with all the other links. Yeah, it's essentially about functional medicine and sort of looking, again, not new information, but understanding that the body is a system in its entirety, and that all of the different systems are interconnected. And yeah, that's really old medicine,
Yeah,
like
and
thousands and thousands of year old medicine.
definitely. And how about a book that like inspired you in your youth with herbal medicine? Like,
Wow, I don't know. That would be fun to go back and look, but
I bet you it was something from AK Press, but
it was, but like I wasn't reading as much about plants at that time. It was like
mutual.
reading about the Black Panthers and reading about, like, I don't know what other AK Press books I have out there, but yeah, the reading the reading about plants came later. There was a lot of like in the field, like experiential stuff that was happening, I think, more so.
Awesome.
Um,
Well,
but
if,
the web that has no weaver was
oh yeah,
recommended to
that's a
me
beautiful
like
book.
really early. Yeah.
Kaptchuk, yeah,
Um,
he's a traditional Chinese medicine guy. So yeah.
hmm.
Great book.
Hmm. Yeah.
Cool. Well, if you think of any more, I will link them. But Ricky, thank
Okay.
you so much for
Thank you, Joy.
taking out of your very busy schedule and joining me here today.
Yeah.
I think we will talk soon, and miss you.
I miss you too. And thanks to everybody who's listening to this
Oh,
or watching this.
yeah. Peace.